Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned, is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride of what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and once again, you're stuck with me in the driver's seat for today's show, but that's okay. It's going to be a great show, and the reason why is because we have a great guest for you, Mr. Phil Kennard. Phil, thanks so much for being on.
Josh, my pleasure.
So, Phil, why don't we kick this off the way we usually do by telling everybody what it is you do?
So I'm Phil Kennard. I'm the founder of Futurestay. Futurestay is a platform that helps anyone make more money from their short-term rental in about 6 minutes.
Okay, great. And how do you really accomplish that? What's the area that you target in that?
So, as all your listeners probably know, owning and operating a short-term rental is a great way to save money on your taxes, build wealth for yourself and your family, and obviously generate additional income. The problem is that once you actually go out and start operating a short-term rental, if you're like most people, you kind of end up with an Airbnb or a VRBO listing, which are great places to start. And then you're wondering, what do I do next? How do I actually make more money or even break even from my STR?
Sure.
And so that's where Futurestay comes in. We're partnered with companies like Airbnb, Expedia, Vrbo, Google Vacation Rentals, etc. And not only can we help you with distributing to all those different channels, that's really just the beginning. What we actually do is we've kind of created a science around how to make more money from your STR. We'll talk more about how we generated that over about a decade of operating. But we feed that science to you as what we like to call a rentalpreneur, basically someone who's using short-term rentals as a form of entrepreneurship. We feed that science to you in 6-minute chunks, 6-minute missions that we like to call them, so that every day, every week, depending on how much time you have, you're getting this much closer to living your best life through short-term rentals.
So bite-sizable. It's
Exactly.
It's handleable. It's not overdone. This is something I've actually seen as a phenomenon. It's one of the things I find most interesting, because as somebody that does a lot of education, figuring out what the right amount is to give somebody that gives them enough. And so 6 minutes seems like not asking too much of anybody's time, but gives them enough content probably to give them a good mission plan going forward of how to make progress. I like that. That's cool. What got you started with that, Phil?
So I'm kind of a lifelong tech entrepreneur. I guess some of it sounds like the classic story, but there's a big twist in the middle of it, which I'll tell you. So after I sold my first tech company when I was about 30 years old, I'm located in the New York, New Jersey area. I thought that I was a up and coming founder and just had a life of luxury and so on ahead of me. So I went out and I got a nice apartment in New York City. And then I realized, oh, wait a second, because I just sold my company, now I don't have a regular income. I just have the kind of nest egg that I got. Right?
Yep.
And I had to figure out some way to pay for this really great, loft in Greenwich Village that I just got. Yeah. And I wasn't planning on using it 24/7. I was just kind of going to use it. My friends and I were going to use it on the weekends as like a little crash pad, right? A little pied-a-terre in the city. And this was kind of right around the era that Airbnb started getting popular. So we're going back pretty far here, like kind of 2012, right? What was actually more popular than Airbnb at that point in time was, surprisingly, Craigslist. And so the way that I kind of made ends meet on it was I would put it on Craigslist during the week when I wasn't using it, and we would use that kind of like furnished rentals on Craigslist to cover the gap so I could pay for it and make a little bit of extra money. So that's how I became a rentalpreneur. I was already a tech entrepreneur. What I learned really quickly was that having a short-term rental, especially at that point in time when online bookings were just starting to become popular, was pretty challenging, right? Like, I didn't have a website to take bookings. You can't really book on Craigslist I was listed on Airbnb, but my Airbnb listing didn't connect with my Craigslist listing. And so it just became a lot of manual work, a lot of like collecting payments in cash. And like, Josh, if you've ever sold or bought anything on Craigslist, you know the rule on Craigslist. Same time, right? No one ever, you never want to pay first.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
never want to hand over the merchandise first. So it was really challenging to figure out a way to actually be able to take those online payments in a way that seemed safe and secure. So being a tech entrepreneur with a lot of free time on my hands at that point in time, I decided I was going to build a little solution for myself and for other, kind of people I knew that were in similar situations. And I built the first version of Futurestay. It was pretty simple. It was like a little bit of a website to put together with calendar and allowed me to take payments securely online. So someone saw my property, they wanted to book it from a Craigslist listing or from Airbnb. They clicked on a link, they filled out online, they could see my calendar, they could pay right there. And it was a lot easier and safer for me. That's how we started. Then I guess kind of like, the classic startup overnight success story, there was enough demand for quote unquote overnight success story, because again, there's a twist in there. There was enough demand for me to really start investing more into it. I realized that I wasn't the only person that had this problem of wanting to kind of centralize control over my short-term rental and make more money from it. There were not just hundreds, not just thousands, right? There were over 10,000 people doing this in New York at the time, and that similar communities were starting to crop up in other major urban metros. Not to mention the existing very large vacation rental industry, which was at that point in time almost $100 billion industry, probably closer to about $70 billion globally. So I realized there was some there. I started working with some of my really good friends who kind of became partners with me, and we went out and raised some capital and built the first real version of Futurestay. Fast forward a couple of years, we became a fully fledged venture-backed company, raised millions and millions of dollars, and launched some of the first partnerships in our industry with companies like Airbnb, VRBO, which was HomeAway at the time, Expedia, Booking.com, and even because one of the things that we're most proud of in terms of our partnership track record is when Google entered the vacation rental industry in 2019, we were their first major partner. It was two companies, our company and one other. And so it really looked like we had conquered the entire industry with a pretty simple premise. We wanted to make it easy for anyone to make more money from their short-term rental. Mm-hmm. A lot of our competitors were focused on the mid-market or enterprise managers, people with hundreds or thousands of vacation rentals. And they really didn't want to focus on the little guy, the kind of person like rentalpreneur like me, or like maybe your audience, who only had one property or two properties or three properties.
Sure.
People told us it was impossible and that there's no way you could really build a solution to make it possible for any regular person to make money from STR. And, I've been used to being told things are impossible my entire life as a tech entrepreneur, kind of first generation, entrepreneur in my family and a early internet e-commerce guy. So I've heard it over and over and over again and never really believe it. And I wanted to create that same sense of possibility for anyone who wanted to be a rentalpreneur. And that's kind of the story of Futurestay, or the first half of it anyway.
Join a community of driven individuals that are committed to your success. Come join our mastermind community and have exclusive access to classes, coaching sessions, Q&As, and so much more. Exclusive things that I've written, books I've written on handling buyer brokerage agreement, objections, and just tons of extra content to help you achieve the success that you're really capable of, to get out of you what you can maximally do, to find out how far you can actually go, to prove to yourself that you're maybe capable of a lot more than you thought you were. That's who's going to be in this group. That's what we're about here. That's what Close for Life has always been. How to help you build a business that not only closes deals, but closes customers for life. And more than anything, helps you build a business that you're proud of, that makes you proud of you and what you've done. Come join us here and learn how to be a little closer to that every single day. Gotcha. What do you like best about what you do?
My favorite thing about what I do is it's really simple. It's that I know firsthand how much impact entrepreneurship can have on people's lives. And so being able to make it easy and more accessible for anyone to be able to use short-term rentals, which is one of the most accessible ways to build wealth today, right? In the US, there are over 6 million individuals that are using short-term rentals to build wealth, and it's kind of increasing by 15 to 20% per year. To be able to make that more accessible and level the playing field for the average person against the big companies that are there, really only represent about 1% of the industry, but they glom onto a lot of the power and the visibility and the money, to be able to kind of like, I don't want to call Futurestay a Robin Hood, right? To be able to, but to be able to reset that playing field is something that excites me every day. When I get to talk to a customer who gets their first direct booking where they're making better margins than they would be if they were only getting bookings from their listings on great sites like Airbnb and Vrbo, that's huge to me, because it means like the light at the end of the tunnel has opened up for that person, and they can see how they can start making more.
Yeah, improve those margins and that direct profit. Gotta love it. Where did all the success come from, do you think?
Well, so it came from, I think, like most real entrepreneurship stories, like not the ones that you always hear on the podcast necessarily, but it came from actually a real challenge and a point of failure for me and for Futurestay. So we had built what, with all appearances, looked like the biggest and best property management system. That's what the segment is called for the rentalpreneur segment, people with kind of 1 to 10 properties. We had tens of thousands of clients. We were partnered with every major company in the industry, all the different channels like I had mentioned, and we'd raised millions of dollars of capital. And outwardly, it looked like things were going great, but the reality is that on every single one of those transactions with every single customer, we had such a operational challenge and a technology challenge serving them. There's a reason why when people told me it was impossible, one of the reasons they said that is, you can't build, it's very difficult, not you can't, but it's very difficult to build a software business when your client is an average person. It's much easier to sell to the enterprise, right? You sell to the guy or gal that's got 1,000 units,
Right.
and you can make 1,000 times
sales.
more.
Yeah,
Right,
1,000
exactly.
sales instead of one at a time. Yeah.
Exactly. So we built the opposite, right? We built the better mousetrap, but we built it for the average person. And so the economies of scale for us really just weren't working out. The main reason why, though, Josh, is not because there was a fundamental flaw in the business or the thesis that we had. It was actually because we failed to do the one thing, which is why I started the business in the first place. I started Futurestay to make it possible for rentalpreneurs to make more money and make it easier for them to do that. And we got kind of caught up in the operational efficiencies and all the different bells and whistles and features, trying to kind of keep up with, I think, with the Joneses in the industry, right? The kind of SaaS, enterprise SaaS pros. And you know how it is, right? You get feature list envy and you start building more, right? So we got into the shootout with everyone. And ultimately what happened was that wasn't what my customer needed or wanted. And so it created more work for us, and it didn't give them the value that they wanted. So we went back to the roots and we turned that failure into success. And we said, we're going to build from scratch. We're going to refocus our efforts on exactly what the 99% of people in this market need in order to be successful, which is they need to make money faster. They need to make more money doing what they're already doing. They need their Airbnb listing to perform better, right? Or their Vrbo listing. And then they need to make better profit margins by adding new channels like direct bookings and Google Vacation Rentals to the mix. And then they need the thing that's missing from all of the software, which is selling to businesses. They need the human element. They need to be told the kind of, the rinse and repeat cycle that comes with habit building, right?
Yep.
You need that prompt to let you know what to do. Then you need that kind of that action that you're repeating, and then you need the reward at the end to let you know that you're closing the loop and doing that habit. That's what we call kind of like the 6-minute success at Futurestay. I like to call it the 6-minute money machine, but it's that 6-minute steps to success.
The kick in the ass followed by the cookie. Yeah, no,
100%, right? So we built that into the product, into the company culture, and that really put us. So if there's an answer for what put us on the track for success, it was really redoubling our efforts around what ultimately matters to the rentalpreneur.
I think it's, and what you're touching on is such a thing, because one of the big places that I see the pain point is in CRMs and real estate. And it's the biggest knock I have against CRMs and real estate is the people that design it are software designers. And the problem with that is they're always they're disproportionately excited by the newest bell and whistle, like you're talking about, like, oh, we could get it to do this. And I'm sitting here as an agent, like, but I don't need it to do that. Or 50 other things. Like, I needed to do one thing, and the one thing I needed to do, you've made it very hard for me to do in the software. So hearing you talk about getting back to the roots of what it was originally designed to do, it's one of the big things I find, no matter who I talk to, that they forget to speak my language, moron. I like people that speak moron. You know, like, I am dumb in this thing. I'm good at the thing that I do, but I'm dumb in this thing. And I need you to be so smart in this thing that it actually will speak dumb. If it can speak my language of stupid, you have hit my wheelhouse, man. I am there. And so, you know, and I'm not saying that to make fun. It's just, it's one of those things that I've always found with software in particular, the folks, I mean, what makes Amazon so amazing is that when I'm trying to find something, I don't even know what to call it. It spell corrects to make it the thing that I was thinking. It reads my mind.
That's right.
I mean, I was looking for one of those boards that has the magnetic tape that, you know, you can just throw things on the board and it sticks to the board. And I'm like, what do you call the magnetic tape board? And, you know, and it found it for me. And you know what? I'm $100 less wealthy because they could connect me with the product by understanding my side of the transaction. It's that.
Josh, you know what's so funny about that you mentioned Amazon? So everyone gives credit to Amazon for their, obviously, the great technology products they build, like Amazon Web Services. They give Amazon a lot of credit for understanding the consumer experience. But here's what people don't give Amazon enough credit for. Obviously, operationalizing shipping, the whole nine yards, you know, creating one-click buying. But here's the core thing, right? And you know this too because you run an enterprise. How complex is B2B purchasing and expense software? It's so complicated because it's designed not for actual people, but it's designed for businesses. The second you start designing something for a business, you make it complex because you're trying to build to every single commercial use case, right? When you design for a human, like Amazon is designed, you make it kind of like, as you're saying, it's like lowest common denominator. Like, when I'm shopping for the magnet board, I don't know what it's called. I'm typing magnet board. That's that same design language, that it's the human design language that we built into Futurestay, which is like, I'm not building this for the revenue management team at a enterprise company with 1,000 employees. I'm designing it for you, the guy that just finished your work, you just finished recording a podcast. You're going to get home and you're going to try to figure out, if I can do one last thing today, how do I make a couple more bucks on my STR to get 1% closer to my goals of being able to live independently? Right? It's that language that we all speak as consumers. We take the business hat off, right? We put the consumer hat on. That language, that design language, that design pattern, that habit forming, that's what creates success for the rentalpreneur.
So let me ask you this. Let's peel the curtain back a little bit, Phil, because, you know, this is the soul of an entrepreneur. What in you, if you had to take and quantify or point to something in your character that makes you good at this thing, what do you think it is in you that makes you do this? Because not everybody does what you do.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I would say that honestly, for me, and this is probably a test to anyone who's listening to this podcast that knows me well is going to say, that sounds like Phil, is that when someone tells me something is impossible, especially if it's impossible and the status quo is bad for most people, I say BS. I am going to not just fix it, I'm going to break it and fix it and break it and fix it again until not only is what you said impossible possible, but it's also the way that everyone does it. Right. I love to challenge the status quo. And that is something that is, I think, really core to a lot of entrepreneurs, right? You know, people talk about perseverance and grit. Sure. I think you, myself, a lot of entrepreneurs have that in spades, right? But challenging the status quo to me is a big deal. And leveraging technology to do so, that's always been something that I'm passionate about. You know, when I first started my first technology company, and we were doing, you know, I was doing a lot of consulting work for large real estate companies, you know, kind of top 10 real estate companies like Brookfield Properties, et cetera. And what I noticed was, well, surprise, right? I'm creating this technology for enterprise. And even though enterprise property managers only represented in terms of what they own, this is kind of going back to the 2000s, they only owned about 5% of all commercial properties, right? They had so much access to power because they could hire people like me to create technology for them. Whereas the mom and pop strip malls and little retail plazas, they were getting priced out. They were getting out competed. They were just getting dominated over and over and over again because they didn't have that expertise, right? And they couldn't move as rapidly because of that. And so with my prior product, what I decided to do was I wanted to create, to make this the same level of kind of punching power accessible to the kind of local landowners that owned maybe a strip mall and had been in their family for generations, 2 or 3 stores. Power that empowers them to have that same kind of level of technology that you would see maybe on the website of like a multi-property mall developer. You know, the You Are Here map? We built that technology and made it so that anyone could sign up for it and use it. And I learned how to build that technology, and we learned how to make it right because we worked with the enterprise and we said, we're going to take this technology and now we're going to make it useful and accessible to the little guy. And I saw that paradigm where when you did that, you might actually help a local business, and then look at that 5 years later, instead of being bought out by the big developer, they're still there. It's still owned by the family and they're still making money. Like, well, what else can we do that with, right? Then you look at conventional real estate, and as you know, most real estate up until recently, especially on the residential side, is owned and operated, especially homes, owned and operated by regular people, not by big companies. But big companies are coming in and they're buying everything up, and they're obviously using that to leverage rates and taking that earning power and that wealth building power, which has historically been the number one generator of wealth in the US, taking that out of the hands of regular people. Well, okay, someone's going to tell me it's impossible to level that playing field and that's just the way that things work. No, I know what the difference is. The difference is economies of scale, access to power, access to technology, and being able to leverage those things to outcompete the little guy. Well, I can't control all those. I can't control the capital markets, but I darn well sure can give the little guy just as much power as the big company. And that's what I did with Futurestay.
Love it. So can you give us a sneak peek of how you do that? Like an example of like what you do there?
Yeah, totally. So a good example of that is, so one of the first things that you're going to want to do if you are already a rentalpreneur and you're listed on a channel like Airbnb, maybe today, 100% of your bookings are coming from that channel. That's awesome, right? I tell every rentalpreneur you should be on a channel like Airbnb or VRBO or Booking.com, depending on what kind of property that you have and where you're located in the world. That's a great kind of base layer. But how do you start getting those high margin direct bookings? Well, you might think, okay, this is simple. I'm going to go out and build a website. So, I mean, Josh, I know you have a website. You probably have a few websites. You have people that go build that for you, right? You don't go sit up late at night on WordPress building a website.
No. Yeah, that's outsourced totally.
Right, that's outsourced. Well, the average rentalpreneur doesn't necessarily have someone to outsource that to. And even if they did, they would outsource the website. And now what's the next challenge they have? Well, that website doesn't have bookings on it. Okay, well, now you got to go install a booking engine. Well, you can do that. Maybe that's another week project. So your first week is getting the website. Your second is getting the booking engine set up. Oh, wait, hold on a second. You get a booking. Guess what? You're double booked because those dates were already taken on Airbnb or Vrbo. Now what do you do? Okay, well, now I got to get my calendars to talk to each other. Well, there's some softwares that can do that. So now you got to actually hire someone. You're going to spend some time integrating some software, or you're going to buy a kind of expensive product that maybe is made for the enterprise or for a manager that had 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 units. So that's going to cost a lot. Now you're weeks or months into this project, and all you were trying to do was get a place to get a way to take direct bookings that are lower commission, right? And even if you did all that, guess what? What happens when someone puts a website up? Nothing. No one goes to your website. No one knows it exists, right?
How to drive traffic? Yeah.
How many websites have you launched in your life, Josh? I mean, dozens.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I've launched. I mean, because of my businesses, I've literally launched thousands and thousands of websites. I mean, I've launched over 20,000 with Futurestay alone, right? But even prior to that, I've launched thousands of websites, starting as an e-com guy from the late 90s, dating myself a little bit. But so I was very young when I was doing it. I started doing it in college. And so guess what? No one's going to go. So you've spent probably hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars. You've put this website up. You figured out how to get bookings on it. You figured out how to connect your calendars. You even maybe figured out how to drive some traffic. And great, you did all that in months and spending thousands. Futurestay, we can do that for you in 6 minutes. You come to Futurestay, you connect your Airbnb listing to Futurestay. We're partnering with Airbnb, and so we can use your Airbnb listing to pre-populate your Futurestay dashboard. It's done in 3 or 4 clicks. And you can even say, no, I don't want to do that. I'd rather build it manually. It's up to you, right? And you can cancel at any time. This is all part of your free trial. So you've now, no money is exchanged hands. 3 or 4 minutes, you're in Futurestay. Your all of your listing information is there. You click another time, bam, your website is up. It's gorgeous. It looks just as good, if not better. And I personally say better than whatever listing that you had, right? But it's great and beautiful, just like your listing was. And then what's the next thing? Well, no one's coming to it, right? Just like it was, just like any other website. Well, no, we partnered with Google Vacation Rentals to make it so that Google, which is where 70+% of all travel searches start, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your website is listed on not just regular Google, but Google Vacation Rentals. We put you on the map, right?
Yep.
You know, the map where everything is shown, so people are looking at where they're going to. We put you there, and so those zero commission searches that start on Google end up on your website, so you can start getting direct, no commission bookings right out of the gate. We don't charge a commission on those. That's money going right into your pocket, and you're getting protection from things. We have like the damage waivers already built in. You don't have to go figure that out. The fraud prevention is already built in. You don't have to figure that out. You don't have to hire a website designer. This is just one example, but this takes you 6 minutes. Why 6 minutes? Well, there's a 2-minute habit rule, which we can talk about later. But the real reason is because it takes about 5 minutes to do, and then 1 minute to understand exactly why the thing that we just did for you and with you matters. We got to educate you and give you that reward, that pat on the back, so you know, okay, cool. Next time Futurestay tells me to do a thing, I'm going to do that because it feels good to learn that I'm getting closer and closer and closer to my goals of being independently either wealthy or taking more control of my finances with my short-term rental. So that's one example, but those sorts of 6-minute missions, that is how Futurestay works. We take something that would have taken you weeks and multiple contractors, lots of headache, and give you progress and complete that same task for you in that 1 6-minute setting.
Nice. Good stuff. So let me ask you this. Looking at the market today, what do you see as the opportunity in the market today?
Oh my gosh. So, I know that, inflation's a topic that's always on your mind, or I shouldn't say always. It's on most of our minds, right? Any of us. I'll consider myself an armchair economist. You're a little bit more full-fledged than I, right? But there's a lot of news, a lot of negative news about short-term rentals. Airbnb bust, right? The short-term rental rush is over, et cetera, et cetera. 2023 was the first year since data had been recorded about the short-term rental industry, since there was an actual data source to record, right, which is 2014, that there's the kind of metric that we use as an industry is RevPAR, which is basically how much revenue per available room, right? So you take all the rooms, you divide it by the total amount, and it's a really good metric to say, like, if the same room year over year is making more money or less money in aggregate across the industry. 2023, at the end of 2000, that was the first year since 2014 that RevPAR went down. And it went down by about a 0.5%. Now, mind you, that sounds like a bad metric. It sounds like that's breaking a 10-year winning streak for short-term rentals. Here's the part of this that all the news articles won't tell you. The supply, the total number of rooms available has been increased, and units available has been increasing anywhere between 5 and 20% year over year over year.
Yep.
So let me ask you a question. This is for not just you, but for your listeners, right? Everyone out there. If I'm selling the same widget, it doesn't matter what it is, and every year the amount of widgets on the market increases by 20%, but my price stays either consistent or typically goes up, is that a good or a bad market? That's a good market.
Well, I mean, realistically, the big piece of this is you had such economic headwinds against you on the short-term rental side. You knew the chicken had to come home to roost because, big things. The Federal Reserve raising interest rates takes and pulls liquidity out of the market, which takes and reduces the amount of discretionary spending money that people have. Where are the first places that's going to hit? People go out to dinner less, people go to the gym less, people go to the movies less, and people travel less. So it's pulling money out of that space, right? And the other big thing is, you had the student loan repayments restart in 2023 as well. So, you had this long period of time, this 3-year period where you had none. And now all of a sudden, once again, 43.5 million Americans have this money coming out of their discretionary spending. So you had to figure out the fact that it wasn't worse is kind of the big surprise. Although you have devaluation of money going on simultaneously, so you need more money coming in to take and break even. But that being said, the fact that there wasn't greater fallout in the short-term rental space is surprising.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're 100% right, and there's some kind of indicators as to why the market is so resilient. I mean, I like to call short-term rentals a drought-resistant market on both the supply and the demand side. There are a couple of reasons why. One is, and let's just start with the most recent in terms of inflation. This is up from about 15% in 2022.
Yep.
15% in 2022, people said, I'm going to take on debt in order to travel. Only about 15% of people said that was a reasonable thing to do. In 2023, 2/3 of families are saying that they plan to put their vacations on either a credit card or on pay over time services. And where do you see this? You go to Airbnb and check out, they're giving you options to check out using Klarna. So you can pay for that stay over time, right? Now that sounds, there are people that are listening that says, that sounds insane. Why would I put this on debt? And the reason why is because when times are good, what do you want to do? You want to celebrate and travel. When times are bad, you're like, I need a break. I'm going to travel, right? So no matter, like, travel is a tremendous anxiety reducer for people. Sure. And in tough times, it's an outlet. And in good times, it's a way that people celebrate, and it's a way that people kind of, feel like they're keeping up with their peer set, right? They get to travel and they get to experience new things. Short-term rental specifically, we all know about the massive tailwinds coming out of the COVID pandemic, right? Where the market literally doubled when consumers doubled in awareness about short-term rentals.
Sure, you couldn't go overseas. You had all this liquidity that was pushed out by the government. I mean, the massive expansion of the money supply, all of this stuff just created I mean, look, you can sit here and complain about it, but the reality of it is you had a medical crisis that was going to be simultaneously experienced with a financial crisis because of the decision made to shut things down. What they did was they massively expanded the money supply to kick the can down the road on the financial crisis, to deal with the medical crisis in the moment, and then take and deal with the economic fallout of taking and rapidly expanding the money supply, which is what we're calling right now. This is the bill coming due for all the crap that we did to try to take and navigate the COVID shutting down the world's largest economy and let's see what happens situation. Right. I mean, I think one of the cool pieces of this too is, maybe I travel when things are good. I travel much further to go on vacation, but the Airbnb booking doesn't know whether I drove down the street or whether I came across the country. It doesn't, whether it's a staycation, that's a much less expensive vacation versus something that's, traveling across the country. That's still demand in that space. So maybe people aren't traveling as far to take and have their vacation. Even so, it is a way to more economically stay places because you possess the ability to entertain. I know whenever we would stay in a short-term rental, we watch movies more as a family. You get together in that living room, you cook instead of going out. These sorts of things are things that you typically can't do in your competitor, which is the hotel space. This is who you're going against. You are in the hotel business, and you are competing with that 3-4 star hotel typically with most of these Airbnb properties, these short-term rental properties. And so understanding that, I mean, this is one of the things that, because I experience from the sales side, right? Mm-hmm. When I'm explaining it to the customer, I need them to know who their competitor is. Their competitor is, Marriott. Their competitor is the Hilton Garden Inn down the road. And they need to take that business away from these folks by offering the different things that they have and understand that there's certain things that they don't have that those other folks do that they have to bridge. They have to create a quality experience that's going to compensate because there's no concierge at their house, right? So, how are you going to bridge that gap and figure out how to make that competitive product that bridges those shortfalls to create a better experience that's, going to create the economic benefit. I mean, I know the first time I stayed in a short-term rental, I was in Europe and I stayed in one in the Ukraine of all places. Wow. And I got to tell you, the fact that there was no concierge there really created some interesting problems for me early on. There was no Google Maps. This was like circa 2006.
Oh, wow. You were an early adopter.
Oh, well, I can't say I was an early adopter. It's just they sold me on this was the way to take and go see the town. I mean, I wasn't trying to save money or anything. They just said, hey, this is the way to do it. So I was like, oh, okay. Like a sucker, I believe the travel agent. And lo and behold, it's one of my favorite war stories of travel gone potentially awry. I mean, I survived, spoiler alert, I made it, I'm here, but there were a few minutes, Phil, where that making it was definitely not quite as much a certainty as we might otherwise like. So
listen, this is something that is a well-known phenomenon. I think, the way this used to be referred to in short-term rentals and vacation rentals was SNAD, significantly not as described, right? Yours is maybe a little bit different than that, but everyone has had the odd kind of war story with short-term rentals. I'll tell you mine's pretty funny. It was myself and it was other people on my team, partners at Futurestay, and we went down to Playa del Carmen for a bachelor party, right?
okay.
We tried to book it online on a site that shall not be named here, but it wasn't one of the kind of big two that you normally book at. But it was a more international site, and they had some great properties. We found these gorgeous penthouse apartments 2 or 3 blocks from the beach, and the price was just right. It was maybe 10 guys or so. So we get down there and we go to check in. And not only is the person that's hosting us not speaking the same language as us, which is fine. We found that we could communicate in French. I know a little bit of French, and we made that work. But they wanted to be paid in cash.
Oh.
Now, we weren't carrying 10 guys worth of cash for a penthouse apartment in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And so the way we got that cash was we had to go to the bank across the street and all take out as much as we could carry multiple times. And I can tell you, a line of tourists in the local neighborhood there carrying plastic bags of cash. That was some of the sweatiest I've been in my life.
Yeah, no, I could see that, man. I could see that. So I'll give you a brief on mine, right? I fly to the Ukraine, right? And they take me to the place that I'm supposed to be. Yep. And in the Ukraine, many of the buildings you don't enter from the street. The street is where all the businesses enter. So you got to go through an alley. In the middle of the block, there's a courtyard. And in the courtyard, there's the entrances to the residential buildings, which are above the commercial buildings. So I go through the alley. You're in New York. I'm from New York. You know how an alley smells in New York? They smell the same in the Ukraine, right? That new alley smell. Piss, right? It smells like a urine, right? So I walk into the courtyard, and there's like 12 women with like 8 teeth between them, median age like 117 years old, hanging out the laundry, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I go in this building, it's the biggest piece of crap looking building, right? Go up the narrowest, I'm looking at the stairways, I'm like, no way OSHA signed off. Oh, never mind, no OSHA, right? I get to the top of the stairs, open the door, the building, the unit finished out like gorgeous. Like everything is beautiful. I got a hot tub, I got 2 bedrooms. I'm like, this is how I like to travel. This is my speed, right? Everything's going fine. The interpreter is getting ready to drop me off because I had somebody pick me up from the airport to bring me here. All one company. The interpreter is getting ready to leave us. I said, okay, what time tomorrow are you guys taking me? Because I had like a whole tour set up. Like I was all set. By the way, alone, solo, I did this. And so the lady says, oh, no, I just do the airport pickups. And she gives me somebody else's car. This person works for our company. They're going to take and pick you up and take you around. So she leaves. And I'm like, all right, So I start unpacking. I said, you know what? Let me call. Just like a dummy. Let me call and just make sure that everybody's on the same page. I think you know where this is going. It's not there.
Okay.
I go to pick up the phone to call. The phone doesn't work. Now, this is circa 2006. My flip phone, the phone that I had, it doesn't work there, right? Yeah. So now you start going through like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like food, shelter. Like, all right, I got shelter. They told me the water's open. Right? I gotta eat. And of course, immediately my stomach is like, I gotta eat. I'm like, oh God, I gotta figure out food. Luckily, I changed some money before. Long story short.
Isn't it funny how rapidly, like, you go through the psychic Maslow's hierarchy when you're really in that situation?
I'm going to freaking die. Exactly.
It's a real thing. Like, you're like, wait a second. I don't have this now. I don't care about anything other than this one thing, right? It's like,
this true oh shit moment of it just got real, right?
Yep.
So anyway, I wound up finding a cell phone store from this place. This is actually the funny part of the end of the story. I go across the street to a restaurant. I ask like for directions. Nobody speaks English. No Google Translate, right? So I finally find out that there's a cell phone store. I get the cell phone. I call the lady up who I'm supposed to meet with. She's like, oh, okay, call me tomorrow. It's too late. So I call her the next day. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. She says, okay, great. Where are you? I'm like, I'm wherever the hell your company left me. You're like, what? But you know what? I'm in business. I've been in business for my whole freaking life, it seems like. I say, I'm going to go down to the street corner. I'm going to find the sign on the street corner. I'll read. Even if I can't read it, I'll spell. I'll spell it to you, and you'll know where I am. If you don't know, I'll keep walking until I find a main enough street that you have some idea where the hell I am, and we'll figure this out, right? So I get down to the street sign, and I swear to you, it's like N, Q, N with a smiley face, another N that's not smile. There's not a freaking vowel to be found anywhere. I'm like, I don't know how to make my mouth do what that sign says. I found a cop. I gave him the phone, and obviously, I survived. But I mean, it's just that piece, that component of like not having somebody there, the adult supervision when you're someplace, especially internationally, you don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, now it's a little bit easier with international, phone service and being able to change the SIM cards and all that fun stuff. But it's, yeah, man.
I hear you, man. So, the funny thing about that is, right, like a lot of people wonder, why is Airbnb so great? Is it the branding? Is it the look and feel? Is it the consumer-centric focus? The reason why Airbnb was able to revolutionize the short-term rental industry, they were not the first, right? They were not the only. They were able to revolutionize this industry for a very, very simple reason. They were able to create an ecosystem where trust and transparency could flourish between the host and the guest.
Yep.
The mutual review system
totally
solved, and the online transaction solved all of that problem and created a ton of value, not just for them, but for literally millions and millions of people around the world on the host side, and people that now trusted guests enough to become hosts, and also, countless hundreds of millions, maybe billions, I don't even know the number at this point in time, of guests. And that's what prevents these experiences like what you had, and mine maybe not as bad, right? Mine, I knew I was going to survive. The question was I going to get robbed, right? I didn't think.
Yeah.
So Airbnb did an amazing job of that, and that's why they get to charge that premium. And that's what hosts get. That's why I think Airbnb is a great place for people who are just getting started to have their first experience as hosting. At some point in time in their journey, typically not too long after, you start to ask, well, hold on a second. Where's the other $200 of this booking? I'm certainly not getting it. And I now believe that I've created enough credibility in my track record that I should be able to put all that in my pocket with a direct booking. And so I'd like to supplement my listing and add some direct bookings to it so I can have some better margins. A lot of people don't realize that if you take your total pool of bookings, right, your total occupancy, and you do about, depends on the property, but you do about 25 to 30% direct bookings.
Oh my God.
That can double your profits.
Totally. Now, so there's a class that I teach, Phil, called short-term versus long-term rentals, right? Because it's on the commercial side, I am routinely handed a pineapple. This is the way I refer to it, a pineapple and a kumquat. And that say, which one should we buy? Should we buy the office building or the go-kart track? And so that's not unusual. Should we invest in hospital or, medical office building? Right. But they're just massively different, right? That doesn't really exist on the residential side until the advent of short-term rentals, where you get, should I run it as a long-term rental or a short-term rental? It seems like they're the same thing. They are about as pineapple and kumquat as they could possibly be, because, one is you're competing on housing, the other one you're competing on hotel. It's one's vacation business, one's housing. It's two different things. And so even the revenue piece for the premium that they charge on cleaning fee versus what people pay, that's actually where a lot of the profit margin is tied into those things, because that bit of money is pure, total, unadulterated profit that goes on top of everything else. Right. And people don't realize just how big a thing that really winds up being. It's an amazing part of that business. So what you're talking about is every nickel that you save translate directly into your bottom line. There's no other place that it goes. It's a very cool piece.
So Josh, to that point, right? And so when we think about kind of the framework that we have at Futurestay, centered around the delivery mechanism being this habit building 6 minute, the tasks that we send out. One of the big challenges, like, what are we actually trying to solve? Well, the first challenge is like, how do you help someone make more money if they don't know how much they're making today? Right.
Sure.
I mean,
Track.
this. How many of the people that are asking you for advice that are maybe already running one short-term rental, they don't have a decent P&L put together for their short-term rental.
Sure. No idea what they're doing.
It's not that they themselves are, not good investors or they're not good entrepreneurs. It's that that's not their full-time job. And as an industry, we don't make that particularly easy, right? Airbnb is going to, they're going to give you the income statements. That's missing some of the fees that are being paid. So you don't even have a total picture about what that gross really was before you get your share. That's normal. That happens on every channel. But in addition, if you have direct bookings or you're taking some things from other sources, those aren't reconciling. They're in completely different formats. So like step one is like, let's get it all in one place.
Aggregate the data. Yep.
And so we can then, now we can diagnose, before we can even diagnose, let's get in one place so we can look at it. The next is, how do we actually benchmark this against market data, right? If you're not benchmarking, and I don't mean just benchmark and say, okay, you're 72nd percent in your market. I mean benchmarking on a micro level. Like, your cleaning fee is higher than what 87% of comparative comp set listings with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and a swimming pool are charging for a cleaning fee. Right? You have to be able to get that granular to understand if you are making all the money that you are supposed to be.
Where you're leaving money on the table. Absolutely. Where you're not competing with your competitors. How to take and make your market, your property as competitive as it's maximally possible.
And if you're selling to an enterprise company, they may know these things already because they have a team. And if their team doesn't come back with this sort of analysis, they're probably not going to be the team for very long. But when it's just you, or just you and your spouse, or just you and your partner,
you don't have the bandwidth.
You don't have the bandwidth. That's the last thing you want to think about. And that's why we break these sorts of things down into the 6-minute task, where I can deliver in 6 minutes for you a way to get a P&L together for your short-term rental. And that way, at least you can look at it. And then the next time I send you a task, I can deliver a way for you to understand where you are priced with certain things, like a fee, for example, or your average daily rate or your policies in your market. It's just creating that repetition and creating that every day, every week. We're getting a little bit closer to our goals of living the life we want through STR.
Yeah, maximizing what we can get out of it's that allocation of capital. How do we take and maximize that allocation of capital? It's tuning the car to take and make it as fast as we possibly can so it's ready to run.
Well, yeah, but Joshua, there's one point that's really important here, right? It's like the people that you're teaching, the people that we're educating and that our software helps, these people aren't trying to be F1 drivers in many cases, right? Mm-hmm. They're really looking for something closer to the self-driving car, right? They want to go fast. They want to get there fast, but they want to do it in a way that doesn't feel like another job, right? Sure. There are people that are making 6 figures, maybe low 6 figures, maybe a little bit below that, a little bit above. They're creating a pathway. That doesn't mean they're ultra wealthy today, but they're feeling like, okay, I have enough. I've created enough of a runway for myself that I feel like either making an investment or I have enough flexibility on time where I may not have the cash ready today, but I can co-host my way to get there. I see that path, right? Sure. What they're trying to figure out is, how do they get out of the rat race, right? How do I get to a stage where, if you ask most of my customers, most rentalpreneurs, not just Futurestay customers, would I rather make $200K a year and work 60 hours a week, or 120, 130, maybe even 100K a year and work 6 hours a week? That's a no-brainer for them. They want to create that pathway to build wealth and create that financial flexibility. Does that mean they're not going to do more stuff on top of that and get their income back up to the 200 plus K? They certainly might, right? But they have that optionality is what they're looking for, the short-term rental.
Yeah, no, the flexibility. I mean, that's what the investment is always supposed to do. It's a massive piece of understanding who this person is, because they represent a subset of society that has made one of the hardest choices in the United States of America. They have chosen not to consume. They've chosen to invest, which is one of the hardest choices that exists. So this is who you're dealing with. This is who your peeps are, right? And they've chosen this route as any investor does, with the hope of a future return. That future return being that they're going to get that back either in money or in time, that's going to take and return to them. If you've stepped into that place to take and say, all right, how do we take and tune this? How do we tune this and get you as much time back or as much money back as we possibly can? And how do we get this income, this revenue to take and support you being able to afford another one of these so you can take and spam this button? I mean, if it's working, why not spam it? Why not get much of it going as we possibly can so that at some point your job becomes irrelevant? And that is the place. Well, that's the sweet spot. Passive income, the two most beautiful words in the English language, right? Passive income. And that,
100%. And that is our one mission at Futurestay. We want to make it possible for anyone to be able to achieve that ability to build passive income and wealth through short-term rentals and level that playing field and close that gap between the average rentalpreneur like me or you and the 1%, the big companies
yeah,
that kind of dominate the airspace, the capital space, the access to partners, access to technology. We're giving the 99% that punching power so they can carve out what's rightfully theirs, rightfully all of ours as rentalpreneurs, the access to build wealth through short-term rentals.
all right, Phil, I want to ask you a question. And this is going to take a little bit of a step back, kind of just an assessment of your life and business to this point. And I'd like to know, what would you say, as a business person, what's the most important thing you've learned in the process of doing what you do?
Yeah. I'd say the most important thing, since you phrase it like that, I'll choose one, is to never lose sight of your why. I know that sounds a little bit
Yeah,
cliche, but the reality is if you stick to the thing that you really truly believe, you will have an infinite source of energy. You'll have an infinite source of grit. When you
yeah,
start shifting, and that doesn't mean you're never going to adjust, but when you shift and you're doing things for a different reason than the reason that you truly were inspired by in the first place, I think that's when you lose sight and you start either going through the motions or you're not trusting your gut enough to build your real, your tribe of supporters that are
yeah,
going to
yeah.
fight through adversity, through impossible odds, scale that wall, take on the opposing army, all the things that are required to do as an entrepreneur. When you lose your why, you lose that ability. And every day it just reduces your chances of success.
Yeah, no, you forget why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. All right, a little bit of a lightning round sort of situation here, just to want to get your quick thought. What are you most proud of in business you've accomplished?
The thing that makes me the most proud in Futurestay is the fact that we've already made it possible for rentalpreneurs, for tens of thousands of rentalpreneurs, to be more successful. Some of one of the first challenges we had as a company was making it possible for rentalpreneurs to even connect to sites like Vrbo, Airbnb, and Booking.com using technology. Most of those sites wouldn't work with, yes, you could go list manually, but you couldn't use technology to automate your business and make more money unless you were a big
Sure, no.
company. So
Yeah,
we broke those rules and made it possible for anyone to use technology to succeed with STR.
gotcha. What a little bit more personal version of that same question. What are you most proud of in life that you've accomplished?
For me, the thing that makes me the happiest is when I meet someone and I can see literally that we've changed their lives. I
Life
can look
change,
at a
yeah, man.
person that I meet either at, we have our customer service team may introduce me to a customer and I get to talk with them. I take like daily calls with customers,
Mhm.
or when I meet them at a conference or meet them in real life and they say, "Oh my gosh, you guys actually helped me pay off that second home that my wife and I bought, and we thought we were going to have to get rid of it, and it was going to be repossessed." Or, "Oh, you helped me save up enough money to pay off those college loans." Like that is literally those life changing moments, right? Those are the real moments that we built Futurestay for. That I built it for myself, right? Just getting closer to our actual goals and dreams. Like it feels so good to connect with someone where that's not a company, that's a person, that's a
That's an
family
individual.
that you're helping.
Their life is better because of what you worked so hard to do. No, man, you are preaching to the choir on that one. I feel that. That
Yeah.
is the best stuff. Um, if you could give, and we both have to acknowledge the person listening right now, we may never talk to again. We may never get a chance to be in front of them. Both of us may never get that chance. What one piece of advice, if you could leave somebody with one piece of advice from, what you've experienced in business, what your journey is, what one piece of advice would that be?
Yeah. Start small, but start, right? You
Yeah.
never win if you don't try. If you're not in the room and you don't create that opportunity, you will never, ever win. When we think about habits, which is something that I think a lot about with Futurestay, we're talking about like the 6 minute money machine, the 6-minute pathway to success with STR. Why 6 minutes, right? The actual, if you look at like the science of habit forming, they talk about 2-minute habits. Why 2 minutes? Because 2 minutes creates what's called a gateway habit. It's something that is so short that even though you're not going to actually succeed doing whatever you want in those 2 minutes, it gets you to start. Okay, you want to work out every day and you want to get in better shape. Well, don't go to the gym and start a 2-hour habit. Start by putting on your workout shoes and going to stand, outside. That takes 2 minutes. That's a gateway habit, right? You create those gateway habits. That's the biggest thing for anyone.
I totally buy that, man. Like I know when I'm on the fence about going to the gym, if I go home and put the gym clothes on, and as soon as I lace the shoes, it's like, crap, I gotta go because I have to untie these shoes, and that's a long way to bend over to do. I might as well go to the gym and get it done. It's one of those things that you con yourself, you work yourself. At the end of the day, man, you realize how absolutely schizophrenic being a human being is. The war that we have within ourselves to get out of ourselves what we need ourselves to do.
Right.
But what you're talking about is just one more of those little gimmicks that we have to do. But I don't want to take too much of your time. I want to ask you a couple more quick questions here. If you could recommend one book or one movie, what would it be?
The book that I would recommend, probably not super surprising based on our conversation, is I would recommend everyone read the book Atomic Habits. It talks a lot about some of the principles behind really tricking yourself into being the person that you want to be. I think a lot of us do some of these things piecemeal, but seeing them all in one place and learning how to start little habits to improve your life is I think, critical for everyone.
Love it. All right. What famous person in history would you like to meet if you could?
That's a real tough one. I would probably, this is going to be a completely different direction from I think everything that we've talked about. I am a huge fan of cooking, like in my personal life. That's like my biggest hobby.
Okay.
And so I would love to meet probably like Jacques Pepin or Julia Child. I mean, that's to go back in time, obviously, to do that, but just someone who kind of took this is going to sound a little similar, right? Took the complexity of professional French technique in cooking and democratized it and made it possible for regular home chefs to start understanding that they could learn and do the same thing and experience that same level of passion and success.
All right. Now, this is a little bit more of a personal version of the same question. What person from your past would you want to sit down with and have lunch with and just pick their brain today if you could?
Oh, that's an easy one for me, man. My mom, every day. I lost my mom a few years ago, and my mom was the smartest person I ever met, hands down. And I see echoes of her. It's always in my heart, obviously, but I see echoes of her like every single day. I mean, even something kind of silly at work. When you're building a tech company, you build all these little reminders and technology services and so on. And every once in a while, I'll see a thing that I worked on with her, and it just reminds me of how much she helped me throughout every stage of my journey, just continuing to get a little bit better at being me, who she knew I could be every year. She's still a constant source of inspiration to me, even though she's no longer here. But every day, be my mom, 100%.
I hear you. I feel the same way. My dad and my mom. I'm a very lucky guy. Both of them were pretty awesome. But mom's still here, but not as healthy as I would otherwise like. Got to take good care of them while you got them, man.
That's 100% right. Everyone who's listening, always take every opportunity you have to share your gratitude. And even if you're not feeling it at that moment, share that gratitude with your parents.
Find it, because when the opportunity is gone, it's gone forever. Yeah. So no, it's tough. Could not agree more. All right. Similar but different type of question. Who would you want to be stuck in a foxhole with taking fire?
Taking enemy fire. I'd probably honestly choose some of my partners from Futurestay. I mean, we've been through a lot together. So I mean, there's a long list, but as you can tell from being, from building a company that was, with tens of thousands of customers and having to make that call of, are we going to keep going? Or are we going to throw in the towel? Because what we've built seems like maybe they were right. It was impossible. And the team and the investors and everyone saying, no, we're not giving up. We believe in this vision and we're going to achieve it. we've all been in a number of foxholes together, and it's great to kind of be out of those foxholes and be back on track and winning the war.
I love it, man. All right. So, Phil, you kind of already told us, but I give you a chance to elaborate on a little bit more. What do you do to unwind?
A lot, right? So the reason, so we talk
We
about
know about the cooking. We know about the cooking.
Cooking one. So we talked about, like I'm a tech entrepreneur, I'm a software engineer. The reason why I became a software engineer was because I was and still am a huge video game geek. That was actually my first commercial contract ever, was a video game development contract when I was 15. So yeah, play video games, spend time with the fam, lots of cooking. I love to entertain. That's lots of travel, as you can imagine, lots of short-term rentals.
Sure. All right. So let me ask you this. What's next for you, Phil? What's the next project?
The next project is the next stage and evolution of Futurestay, right? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, we want Futurestay to make it possible for anyone to make more money with short-term rentals. But think about, what does that look like in the future? In the future, sure. Are you logging into a software and listing your own property on sites like Airbnb, or even creating your own website? Or in the future, is AI doing all of that for you, right? Sure. It sounds kind of crazy, right? But like 20 years ago, the thought of a self-driving car was the Jetsons. Mm-hmm. And now, you or I can have one.
Well, I think one of the most interesting things I've heard recently, Phil, was this, that one of the first businesses to go out of business from the internet was travel agents. And one of the biggest businesses currently going is travel agents once again, because there's just so much stuff online that the aggregation. So does AI come in and make the travel agency irrelevant again, maybe at some point? Because the travel, I mean, it's to this point, I've got things I am a master delegator, but when it comes to booking, like the flight that I take and the hotel that I stay in, like it's hard for me to find somebody that understands just how much I like the DoubleTree cookies. And right. Like if it's driving an extra 5 miles to have a DoubleTree versus someplace.
Those warm cookies, man, those are so good.
Those are so freaking
After a long day of meetings, you get that, or travel, you get that warm chocolate, man.
And you know what? Every time I go to the desk and I say, "Can I have a cookie like Oliver Twist?" they give them to me.
Please, sir.
Please, sir, can I have some more?
They give you like a stack, right, Josh? It's not like they know. They look in your eyes and they can tell how many layovers you have. Right?
How many do you need?
That guy's got a 3 layover day. He's get 3 cookies. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. And then they see me guiltily walking down in my gym clothes to go do the cardio to work off the cookies. The whole guilt cycle of, it's a thing, man. It's a thing. So, Phil, it has been great, my friend. I wanted to ask you, where can people find you if they want to know more about what you're doing? They want to know more about Futurestay and all this stuff. Where can they find you?
Yeah. So the best way to find more about me and Futurestay is to go to futurestay.com. You can also follow Futurestay on all socials. It's Futurestay, and you can grab me on social on both LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm Philip Kennard. The S is for Sean, which is my first name that we never use anywhere. So, but you can see it on my socials, Philip Kennard, and you'll hear a lot about short-term rentals, a little bit about cooking and video games, and most importantly, you'll hear a lot about how to get closer to your goals and live your best life through STR.
I love it, man. Phil, thank you so much for your time, sir, and for making us all a lot wiser on how all of this works.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, guys, till next time, you see what it's like when you get around somebody who actually knows their shit. Isn't it amazing? Always has something to say, always on top of their game. That's what we want for you. Always know what you're talking about. Always pay the most expensive bill in life. Always pay attention. Till next time, guys.